Thank you for attending today's session. My name is Daryl Foster, and we're going to be talking about low carbon fuel standards today. And we've got an expert on the subject, Toby Minoru, hope I said that right, Senior Policy Analyst at Low Carbon Fuels Branch for the Energy Decarbonization Division at the BC Ministry of Energy and Climate Solutions, is here with us to help walk us through our slides. So just a reminder today, we've disabled the Q&A, but we do have the chat open. You can put your questions in there. If there's something super relevant, I'll pop in and we'll hit Toby with the question. Otherwise, we'll try and save them till the end. And we'll try and get through your questions. If we don't get through your questions, certainly send an email to any of the advisors in your area or to me or Toby, and we would be happy to respond. So Toby, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
So thank you to our sponsor this week. It's CELO EV Charging Systems. They are our webinar sponsor. So if you're looking to install EV charging systems, that's someone that you might want to look into. Next slide. And as always, we have our privacy and education slide. So remember, please keep your questions anonymous. Don't identify individuals or anything like that could interfere with someone's privacy rights. And of course, this is not legal advice. If you're looking for legal advice, you should look at obtaining that independently. And please respect the privacy of those persons attending and participating in the seminars. And that's it. Toby, I'm going to turn it over to you and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It's my pleasure to be joining you here from Surrey, the lands and unceded territory of the Kwantlen, Kwatse, and the Semiahmoo First Nations and other First Nations of the Coast Salish peoples. Daryl, please, are you able to see my picture? I'm not seeing myself on the screen. Just wondering if...
Yeah, your video is not running.
The video. Yes. Could you give me the opportunity, the right to share the video?
You should be able to, but let me just see.
Sorry.
I'm gonna transfer the.
Oh, it's okay. It's coming later. Many of you have seen me before. I've helped with a few questions in the past, and we were here in 2023 to provide a launch and learn series like this. Today, the main focus will be working with a third party, the third point on the agenda, and then we'll go through the rest of the slides, save the questions till the end of this launch and learn presentation.
Thanks, Toby. You should be able to try to turn your camera on now. I think I fixed it. Hey,
thank you.
Good to see you in a sunny location. Yes.
Yeah, sunny because it's raining here. So I'm so happy to be on the beach, enjoying my life and time of my life. So thank you, everyone. And I'm happy to be here right from the beach. Okay, so many of you have known about the LCFS. It's not new to you by now. You know, it's one of BC's flagship climate policies. It's been here since 2010, implementing renewable and low carbon fuel requirements. The low carbon fuel requirement is also called carbon intensity reduction requirement. And the intent has been the same right from the start: reduce dependence on fossil fuels, expand the use of renewable and low carbon fuels right here in the province, giving us more choices to choose from. And the results have been incredible so far. In 2023, we saw over 3.3 million tons of BC emissions avoided and over 22.6 million tons of global emissions were avoided since 2010. Based on all of this result and similar programs like the low carbon fuel standard, the federal renewable fuel regulations was modified in 2023 into a policy that looks like the low carbon fuel standard. This policy is called Canada's Clean Fuel Regulations, as some of you may know. So what are LCFS requirements? We know that there are so many programs in BC right now working in tandem to reduce the reliance on fossil diesel and gasoline for vehicles, ZEV regulation, Strata Act modifications, and rebates. Of course, I'm talking about another incentive here that could encourage you to put in more electric vehicle charging stations, and that is the LCFS carbon intensity reduction requirement. It makes electricity supply a low carbon fuel when it is supplied for applicable purpose, which I'll go through in the next slide. For diesel and gasoline used in vehicles, carbon intensity reduction required is 30% by 2030, and that's being compared to the 2010 levels. The LCFS is a requirement, which means people who are covered under the Low Carbon Fuels Act, Low Carbon Fuels General Regulations, Low Carbon Fuels Technical Regulations, which are the regulations under the Low Carbon Fuels Act, would also need to report or do things that are under the Act when they are required to do so. Okay, eligibility. In the last slide, I spoke about applicable purposes is very important, right? From 2010, transportation has been covered. We have light duty vehicles and heavy duty vehicles. In 2022, we made a big change that allows basically anyone in BC that's investing in low carbon fuel infrastructure to be able to report the supply and generate credits. I'll go through to that in a second. And other applicable purposes are cargo handling equipment used at the ports, ground support equipment used at airports, and heavy duty forklifts. Who are the responsible parties that must report in residential buildings? So the responsible party is the utility when the building includes less than 5 dwelling units. But if the building includes more than 5 dwelling units, then it will be the utility bill account owner, that is the person who has account with Fortis, BC Hydro, any of such, and that is the case for the other purposes under the Act, transportation, and everyone. But electricity is special because when we came here in 2023, we heard from you that sometimes it may be difficult to report on different requirements that stratas are not familiar with. And so beginning in 2024 compliance period, a person that supplies less than 15,000 kilowatts does not report under the LCFS. They have been exempted from reporting unless they want to do so. And I will let you know you can participate in few slides after. This is the main part of our focus today. Responsible parties have compliance reporting obligations, just as I mentioned earlier. So for the building to be eligible, it has to contain 5 or more dwelling units. townhouses or other types of strata properties that do not have this structure, they can also work with a third party, but they are not able to transfer compliance reporting obligations because they do not have the compliance reporting obligation. Stratas that pay the electricity bill at eligible buildings can transfer compliance reporting obligations using allocation agreements. Allocation agreements began in 2024. Compliance period is one of the main measures the ministry has put in place to streamline reporting, remove red tape, and ensure more people can participate under the LCFS. If you allocated electricity supply to another entity in BC, you don't have to submit a compliance report, even if you are the responsible party for that fuel, like I mentioned in the previous slide. Okay, allocation agreements. What is allocation agreement? I can give you a technical definition. It's an agreement under Section 7 of the Act, but I will not do that. Today, I'll just focus on the main things that characterize an allocation agreement. We have what it must include, the mandatory information under the low carbon fuels general regulation that must be in the allocation agreement. And that is like any agreement, allocation agreement must have term dates, but that should be at least 1 day and not above 3 years. After the 3rd year, it goes back to the responsible party, that is the strata in this case. And so you can renew again the allocation agreement and then continue with that entity or with another entity. The second characteristic of an allocation agreement is that it must include a statement requiring the aggregator to provide the strata with the number of credits issues and the fair market value at the time of issuance. That is non-negotiable, and I'll tell you some of the reasons why we do that because in the next slide. Another mandatory information in the allocation agreement are the contact information. Like I said, is required in any agreement, but what is special for this contract contact information is that the address must be right here in BC, the postal code. That's one of the key things we are looking for. For the fuel information, in order to make this easy for participants of this call, I've copied what you need to write in the fuel information as example. So in the fuel name, you can write electricity, fuel category, gasoline fuel category, fuel carbon intensity, that's the carbon intensity for the provincial grid. That's 12.14 carbon dioxide equivalent per megajoules, and then the reference provision under the Low Carbon Fuels Act that is related to this agreement, and you just need to say Section 19B, which is Section 19B2, which is to show that you're using the default carbon intensity every time the agreement is in place. Although, like, even though it changes, then we know as a ministry to go in there and just say, put in the next number for the default carbon intensity. So there's less work for the strata to do. Another key part of the allocation agreement is that it has to contain the electric vehicle charger information. And that's the address, the GPS coordinates of the place so that we can go there and find it if we would like, the intended use of the charger. Sometimes some chargers can have multiple uses. You can use it in charging passenger vehicles, like it's done in stradas or also other uses. You can list as many uses for the charger and then write in the charger manufacturer, the serial number, charger level 1 or 2, number of ports, and number of ports on the charger. And all of this information can be filled in using a template of the final supply equipment information that has been derived from the low carbon fuel standard reporting portal. Okay, allocation agreements again. There are so many other things that pertains to an allocation agreement, and some of the key items are: one, allocation agreements enables a strata that is supplying above 15,000 kilowatt hour to transfer the reporting obligation to another person. In this case, I'll call them aggregator, like I've done previously. And a strata that is supplying below 15,000 kilowatt hour, they may also allocate their responsibility if they would want revenue through an allocation agreement with another person. Electricity can be allocated to anyone in British Columbia, and we've made sure that anyone that is not willing to participate but supplying below 15,000 kilowatt hour, then they don't have to submit compliance reports or have any communications with the ministry. But if you would like to participate, then you can complete an allocation agreement and to transfer the responsibility of that fuel to another person who is able to report the fuel. In order to make allocation agreements very simple, the ministry have not required a standardized template. That is, like I said, you can do any template that's tailored to your business and that fits both you and an allocation agreement. If you would like an example of what a template could look like, I would encourage you to go to our website, the Low Carbon Fuel Standard website. In the credit market page, you will find a representation agreement form, which you could attach all of the mandatory information in the previous slide, and then also attach the final supply equipment template that you download from our portal, and that would contain all of the information that is needed as a status quo for allocation agreements. However, allocation agreement can also be part of a larger contractual arrangement. Many times it could be early enough during either.
So I've got a question just real quickly here. Interesting is that for strata corporate, smaller stratas that don't have, say, a lot of EV chargers, but they've put them in, maybe they've only got 3 or 4, and they're not actually getting anywhere near the 15,000 kilowatt hours. They can combine with another strata that is contributing. They can be part of the program and still receive the financial benefit by going through, like, combining their sort of kilowatt hour rating with another strata.
That's correct there.
Okay, that's really
Yes.
interesting to see. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you can connect with any other strata, another organization, any person that's able to report on your behalf. And many businesses are actually doing this now. I was really surprised to do a quick Google search to find who is reporting BC LCFS credits and reaching out to people in order to do that for them. A lot of businesses are doing this right now, and so we've not provided a list on our website. But if you would like some of the people that could be potentially be an aggregator, we have an informational bulletin 013, which contains the list of people that could report on your behalf.
Right.
And you can choose any of them or look on the web, do a Google search, look on the website, and I'm sure some of them have contacted you already. And like you said, Daryl, like another thing is cooperating is very, very good, because when you're working with businesses, they may have other themes that, of course, help their businesses to grow. One thing to look out for sure, when you want to do such agreements is to include a value that you expect to receive from the credit sale. And the ministry encourage everyone to shop around, look at different types of agreements so that you understand what the person is trying to market to you. And I wouldn't give any suggestions, but I will give some other considerations for you to look out for. One thing is, what is your understanding of the LCFS requirements? I've showed you what the mandatory information are and things that they should and should not do in an allocation agreement. Also, what is their pricing strategy for this strata? If a community of stratas are coming together to market our credits, we can talk about, oh, by buying from stratas, you'll be contributing to multi-unit housing, multi-unit buildings in BC, and that may encourage a potential buyer to buy more from a group of strata than maybe other business. Another thing would be to look at, of course, it will be the transparency of the contract terms. If an aggregator is presenting a proposal, some of the questions you could ask is, like I said before, what value will I be getting? What is your fee or commission? What is the contract exclusive or in-exclusive after the 3-year terms? Is how often will the credits be offered for sale? Which is like the payment schedule and reimbursement arrangements that you may want to include. So many other things could come into play here. Daryl, do you have other, would you like to jump in to provide other suggestions
Well,
or things
I
for
think,
people to consider?
just like any contract, I think it's a good idea to have legal review done before you sign anything. And, we always recommend that. But I think one of the sort of keys I'm just in my head here is that you've got an opportunity, some strata corporations, where you're dealing with large stratas, residential, commercial sections. Those sections may be installing their own EV charging systems, and the residential may also be charging separate EV charging systems that are completely metered separately and managed by the sections. There could be a huge benefit to them joining together in these programs, so that they're entering into an agreement under, I guess, similar to like a broker, right? Someone's brokering this on your behalf. And so you don't have to worry too much about the management of it because it's dealt with through that agreement, and you're receiving the financial benefit of these credits. So it makes sense.
Oh, thank you, Daryl. And I'll be getting into the financial benefits of this credit very soon.
Good.
Record keeping is part of the requirements to be able to work with other entities. Like Daryl has said, do a legal review, but also under the Act, although you're not required to submit compliance reports, you are required to keep that allocation agreement for at least 6 years after the term of that agreement with one entity. Another record keeping that we would suggest in order to be able to get the best from this program will be the transactional charge data. The transactional charge data provides the information about how much charging was done during each charging section. I've provided an example here, and the best thing is to download and save that information at the end of the year or very early the next year, because sometimes you may want to reach out to the service provider and they don't have it saved. But if you don't provide this information to your aggregator, they are not able to report those volumes of fuel that has been supplied, and they would not be able to get the credit. So the record keeping, and one of the actions on the side of the strata would be downloading maybe and saving this information and passing them over so that the person in which they've completed the agreement with can know and report this information. Now we're getting into the most interesting part, credit calculation. Credit calculation formula is written under the act, and the number could be a debit or a credit. So this is the formula that you would use in calculating credit. We've made it very simple for Stratas, Daryl. Like, you can go on the electricity page of the low carbon fuels website and download the compliance unit calculator. When you download the compliance unit calculator, it just requires you to put in the year and the total electricity you've supplied in order to know the number of credits you may expect to get under the low carbon fuel standard. Right now in 2025, 2026, numbers may change, but the one credit is approximately 1,100 kilowatt hour. 5 EVs driven 15,000 kilometers would use 15,000 kilowatt hours. And the nice thing is that we are having more electric vehicles that have a longer range and are bigger. For example, I do have an SUV electric vehicles that use more electricity, and I'm sure like more people using those will be able to get into the minimum requirements very quickly, and you can get 14 credits. Yes, what is credit value? The
That's a
14
big
credits,
question, right?
it is the big question, Daryl, because everything is, I have to take my time to explain to people that actually these credits are like the valueless coin on my presentation slides. They have no real value in themselves because the ministry have not set a price per se for it. It depends on demand and supply, which is set through the targets in the regulations and also based on negotiations between parties. On our website, we have the BCLCFS credit market data, and we've published the recent sale prices of credit. On those, in that Excel sheet, you will find the average price, the minimum price, the maximum price. You can use all of these in your negotiation. In January, the average price was 330 Canadian. The minimum was 240 and the maximum was 460. Say we were to multiply the 14 credits by the minimum value of credits in January, you will be able to get 3,600 credits, which you can use for whatever thing that you would like to use. And we do encourage stratas to put it into decarbonizing different sections of the strata or getting more electric vehicle chargers. To summarize, I would like to say the credit value set by the requirement is that is functional intrinsic value, which is that credit cancel debit. And because credit cancel debits, each debit have a penalties for people who do not want to, who did not choose to buy credits, and the penalty rate right now in 2025 is $600 per debit. Credits depend on negotiations between parties selling and buying the credits, which is why there is a perceived value. And the perceived value relates to the recent sale prices and also the preference of the buyer mainly. Like some of you would have known, who are the buyers of these credits? You have to be able to understand that market. And that information, you can find it in Information Bulletin 013 that I mentioned earlier. And that information will give you some of the people that are buying debit generators, that are selling credits. And these people are primarily importers of diesel, fossil diesel, and gasoline into BC.
So they'll buy your credit so they can
Yes,
offset their costs or debits because they're importing fuels that are not low carbon, right?
yes, because
And
they're
so
no
now
local.
you can take advantage of that. That turns into real funds the strata can apply themselves to their hydro bills or whatever.
Yes, that's true. Because
Great.
yeah, the debits are definitely more expensive than what the credits are as at
Right.
January this year. And also credit can be sold using long-term agreements. That is, you
Right.
could have an agreement, standing order with a buyer and tell them, oh, for the next 5 years, I'll be able to give you 5,000 credits per se, which is why commonly and pulling together credits within different organizations is beneficial. Credits do not expire. You can keep your credits for several years and sell them in future in order to be able to aggregate more credits for sale, because
Right.
that's where the biggest challenge is. We've got that feedback, Daryl. For
Yeah.
our portal, like some of you would have known, the reporting process is a little bit simple. You just need to put in the total aggregate credits after you've been registered within the portal. And then the next step will be to sell those credits. And I'll be going to the next slide now, which is we're coming to the end, and I will take some of your questions at this time. So credit trading allows businesses to offset emissions with credit prices being negotiable. Strata corporations can transfer reporting responsibilities using allocation agreements. That's the most preferred way. The ministry encourages Strata to review mandatory information in the allocation agreement and non-mandatory information as well. Like Dara has mentioned earlier, a legal review may be beneficial. Accurate record keeping is essential for compliance. And we do encourage you to participate as much as possible. Use this credit revenue, especially in this economic climate, and use them for the benefit of your strata. I'll pass it now over to you, Daryl.
Wow. Thank you, Toby. And it's really interesting to hear about this. It's kind of a new market opportunity for Strata as a bit of a, hopefully a generator of offset so that you can offset some of your costs as a Strata Corporation if you decide to participate in this. And collaborating with other people that are in a similar situation, even as a small strata, could be a pretty nice benefit. So thank you very much for this. Anyone have any questions? I mean, I don't see anything in the chat. So I'm not sure whether everyone's just completely overwhelmed or whether they've got all their answers. But if you do have any questions, please again reach out to one of the advisors or reach out to Toby directly. And you've got her information there. It was on the screen at the beginning. This is going to be recorded and posted to the CHOA website, so you can go and review that also in the future. And so I don't see anything up on the chat, Toby, so we might as well say good day.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. This is my pleasure doing this and explaining it to you. Like, Darasol, please shoot me a question after this presentation to clarify any questions that may arise later. Thank you so much,
Sure.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And remember, if you want any more information, just a good read, the low carbon fuel system website through the BC Ministry is available to you also. There's lots of information on there. So I know you had it pulled up there, Toby, earlier. So I was looking at it a little bit. So anyway, have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for participating, and we'll see you everyone next time.
Thank you.